And we have Mrs. Sippel next. Please go ahead, you have the floor.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. We've been having 3 debates on democracy and rule of law. Next Generation EU. Orban Kaczynski following their autocratic route further with the help of European money. Rule of law is a priority of the German presidency, but is it really for all? Because the compromise which we have on conditionality is disappointing. No reverse qualified majority, which would have made deleting EU monies automatic. And this cannot be continued. The risk of danger to the rule of law is deleted. What we desperately need is an extended risk to the budget. Next generation, my next generation EU wouldn't be this, colleagues, and therefore for our democracy we have at last to require a clear commission from Council. And the next speaker is colleague Gozzi.
We have a unique opportunity here, and I am turning to the Council. Michael, let us place rule of law at the heart of the budget. Let's not give in here. Let's focus on rule of law as our priority. Let's not give in to blackmail by Viktor Orban. He is bluffing when he says he'll block the recovery fund. Let's be more ambitious when it comes to enforcement. My dear Michael, rule of law is more than protecting the financial interests. We're talking about all our freedoms. Conditionality is the only way to ensure that we have mutual faith in one another through Next Generation EU. Let us not abandon citizens. We've proposed smart conditionality. The Commission directly manages funds if there is a breach of rule of law, so we're punishing the governments, not citizens. Remember what Martin Luther King said, a delayed right is a right denied. So let's ensure genuine protection of our values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hakkarainen is next.
Arvoisa puhemies, onko EU oikea taho keskustella?
Is the EU the right platform to have a debate on the rule of law? We are talking about people who don't really understand respect for these types of values. If we look in the context of the recovery package, the EU is violating its own rules but expects the member states to comply with them. This whole debate about a real rule of law, it just shows the hypocrisy of the EU. Each country is sovereign, it has its own culture, it has its own values. It is clear that the EU model can't fit to all of these countries. Next, Miss Delbos-Corfield.
Is it working?
Allez-y.
Oui, c'est bon?
Oui.
Nous n'avons parlé pendant...
Well, for a decade, we've been talking about structural adjustment and budgetary cost to the detriment of our cultural services and populations. We have this first report on the rule of law, and you want to create a rule of law amongst us. It's a good initiative and it's a good report, but the question of freedom and rights is just a discussion which is taken up from time to time in national parliaments or occasionally here when we say the rule of law isn't improving on the European Union, so we have failed. Why doesn't the Commission trigger off infringement procedures when it's a question of finance and competition? Why do member states hesitate when they see that the populations that they are governing over suffer terrible consequences from monetary rules. What we are seeing is a reduction in liberty and democracy, and on that we don't seem to manage to create a proper sanctions mechanism which is worth its words.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot find words when the German presidency does not keep its promise made on the July summit. And I cannot find words when the Commission wants to bypass the Article 7 requirements. I cannot find words when Mrs. Barley is speaking about values. I cannot find words when the German presidency is talking about justice and the rule of law. Maybe time has come to pay the war reparations to Poland for the damage and the loss of human life.
Dziękuję.
So, wir fahren fort in der Debatte mit Herrn Kollegen Deutsch. Bitte schön.
Magyar vagyok, szeretem a hazámat.
Thank you. I am Hungary and I love my home country. I love freedom. I would defend my home country, and I fought for freedom and my homeland under a dictatorship. I am a member of a country, a citizen of a country described by Mrs. Jourova as sick. I come from this country, and Commissioner Jourova has said that most Hungarians are not able to shape their own views and opinion. My country is being threatened by Ms. Barley, Vice President of the European Parliament. She is threatening to starve Hungarians. That's his blackmail and arrogance. It is completely unacceptable. Minister Roth, what you have heard here recalls what party secretary said in the 70s, forcing people to accept their ideology or putting paid to those people. Well, we resisted in the 70s.
Das ist eine Aussprache, Frau Kollegin. Herr Kollege Benifei.
Next is Mr. Benifei.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. It is no longer acceptable to have governments like those of Poland and Hungary hold the European executive to ransom. And just when we're starting the Recovery Fund and Next Generation EU, we've seen the nationalists bluffing as usual, and what we're seeing is very dangerous. It's important that we realise that European nations are based on the rule of law. What we are seeing is an undermining of freedoms, democracy and the rule of law, and the autodetermination of expression, and also the right to hold meetings. It's important that we change. We have to ensure that we put all our resources necessary into recovery, and at the same time we require respect for the rule of law and freedoms with no exclusions. Colleague Che, next.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, this in my hand is the European Commission's annual report on Hungary's rule of law situation. And this says that there is a systemic lack of determined action to investigate and prosecute corruption cases involving high-level officials or their immediate circle. This is the 2019 report of OLAF, the European Union's anti-fraud body, which shows that financial irregularities in Hungary are 10 times above the EU's average. So, what are we having? is that the European Union's official position is that we have a member state where corruption is off the charts and there are basically no guarantees against the government pocketing EU taxpayers' money. So the question is obvious. When are we going to do something about it? When the rule of law is in danger, these projects should be directly managed by the Commission so that they reach the final beneficiaries, the small businesses, the civil society, those who need it the most. Because, let's face it, words are not enough anymore. Let's act. There is a pandemic raging around us. We need to help those who are in need. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, und es schließt sich an.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Teak.
Trying to solve a health crisis and economic crisis without ensuring that the rule of law is respected is like repairing the roof of a building with sagging floors. We can no longer stay silent to the numerous rule of law violations in the EU, and we need an effective instrument and the political courage to bring an end to impunity. The EU budget will grow unprecedentedly high. We must use this momentum, not only because of the financial interest of the EU, but also because it creates the opportunity to use the interest of autocrats like Orban in EU money. But the Council position gives the impression that Member States don't want an effective instrument. Which message do they send to the citizens under threat? We are one union, but you need to fight for your own rights? That is really justifying actually the distrust that many citizens already have in the EU. Dear colleagues, I call on you. Let us make sure that this will not happen. We need conditionality on all aspects of the rule of law, not only corruption and fraud.
Please.
We need to stay united as a parliament and don't let the member states leave us with empty hands. After all, we're not here to defend our governments, but our citizens.
The rules, please. Thank you. Schließt sich an, Herr Kollege Warborn.
Mr. Warborn is next.
Fru talman, medborgarnas tillit, det är...
Thank you very much, Madam President. We need to be able to protect the trust of our citizens and of the taxpayers. They need to be able to feel that their money is being properly used. Unfortunately, we have seen a number of examples of member states where the rule of law is not being respected anymore. Within my party, the Moderaterna in Sweden, we have the rule of law as a key principle. We need to be able to properly monitor how EU funds are spent, and the situation is simply not functioning at the moment. We need to be a lot more tough in the future. There should not be €1 which is not being used without us knowing exactly who's using it and why. The budget needs to be completely transparent, not just now, but in the future as well. This is going to be absolutely key for cooperation in Europe. We have to stop corrupt forces from using Swedish money in this way.
Runde der Abgeordneten, Herr Kollege Tudorache, bitte.
Mr. Tudorache is next.
Dragi colegi, dezbaterea de astăzi, de fapt, nu ar fi trebuit să aibă loc. Pentru simplul motiv că statul de drept e o valoare elementară pentru o democrație.
Fundamental rights are fundamental to our democracy. They shouldn't be the object of our discussions. We should be negotiating this properly. But it's important to recognise what is happening. We're talking now about conditionality, and we're in a situation where certain member states have problems with the rule of law, and we cannot overlook or step aside from this debate. I think we need an effective conditionality mechanism. We need a mechanism to ensure that states, that governments can access European funds and that also benefit from the rules, from majority decisions. Citizens who have voted should see that we are strong in our defence of fundamental rights and freedoms. Thank you very much. So we close the roll of members, speakers, and I should like to thank all of you. And now